What? You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And yes, it is showtime. And guess what? It is that time once again where we do another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. Hope that you guys are doing having a great Saturday here. I wish I could say that I was, but nevertheless, it is what it is as of right now. By the way, I'm Joe D. McPhee. I am your host for tonight, and we got a lot of things to truly talk about and everything here. So it's time for you guys to get your popcorn, get your soda, get your favorite type of libation, and sit down, relax. And let's have a chat here because we got a lot of stuff to talk about and everything here. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and get the business end of things out the way, such as stupid o'clock happening 1 hour into the show here, which starts at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is then followed up by Last Man Standing. Then you have another little bit of a respite until Monday morning when you have Nicholas Tucker and Nevermind the Furthermore at 10 p.m. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget about Comic Book Spectrum. We are doing Space Ghost this upcoming Thursday here, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And yes, hopefully Cliff will be back here. And if I could, kind of sort of twist his arm, we might have one of the older founding members back too for this particular episode. But we got to do some arm twisting to see if they're available here, being that they are one of the bigger Space Ghost fans out there here. But nevertheless, that is the business end of things here. And I'm going to say welcome to all the ones that are just now popping in here. We are at that moment once again. And sometimes I know for a fact that this is the majority of you guys' favorite part of the show here. Why? Because it is that time for new comic book pickup store of the week here. And yes, we usually start off every program in the very beginning with new comic book pickups because I want people to get excited about the new stuff that comes in for the private collection or stuff that's going to get sold and everything to that magnitude. And we got Parallax game here. So they're here, they're ready to watch and to discuss and to see the new comic books that came in here. So we're going to start off with some Lady Mechanica here. So we got a Dragon Con exclusive Lady Mechanica La Belle Dame Sans Mercy issue number 2. This was limited to 500 copies here from Dragon Con. So we got that one came this week. And then we got another copy of Sangre number 1 and issue number 4. So I'm almost got the full run of these, and both of these are actually signed by Joe Benitez as well. Then we got an Archie 290, a Jughead 306, the Archie Giant Worlds of Jughead 505, from Volume 2, issue number 4 with Jughead, 43, 47, and 48, and 71. Now, On that note, we also got Mr. Miracle number 21, which means that my final count for having all of volume 1 of Mr. Miracle is now down to, I believe, 2 issues here. And all of them are later issues of Mr. Miracle. And there, for those who don't know about volume 1 of Mr. Miracle, there's a big gap of a couple of years between issue, I want to say 18, from 18, which was part of their original run from from Jack Kirby, to when they did issue 19 through, I believe, 25, which was like I want to say it was almost like 5 years later. So it's like from 72 to 77. So this is issue number 21. So I'm down to like my last 3 that I got to pick up here. And then we got an issue 18 from the current volume of Wonder Woman, which I believe is not Wonder Woman, Catwoman. I don't know why I'm thinking Wonder Woman all of a sudden here. But we got issue number 18 for Catwoman from this current volume, volume 5 here. Yes, Forsyth P. Jones, aka Jughead Jones. And then this is one book that we kind of argued over here, Parallax, here, as far as what is considered a definitive, reprint of Giant Size X-Men 1. So I finally have a copy now, and that is the special edition X-Men. This is, I believe, the full complete reprinting of Giant Size X-Men number 1. So if you don't have the actual Giant Size X-Men number 1 and you got a couple of dollars here, you might want to grab this special edition volume, because this is an actual reprint of Giant Size X-Men 1. And then we got Fantastic Four 117, which is nice and pretty and shiny. It's a decent copy. It's not what I would consider great quality here. Yeah, first complete reprint. Yeah, it was the first complete reprint. Yep. Beanie says, my Lord. So from the same place that I got that Fantastic Four, I got introduced to this particular title. Unfortunately, it's only one issue. And it's only one issue that has ever been put out of it. But we do have Tiger Girl number 1. Now this is an old Gold Key one, but the character is not, if I could say, it's not a older character, but I believe this is the only issue where she had her own solo title. So this is the one that I ended up getting here. So that was a decent pickup here. And then I finally got this one, but I have another one on the way too. But I finally got my copy of Giant Size Creatures number 1, which is the first true appearance of Tigra, as well as having Jack Russell, aka Werewolf by Night, as a whole here. And then last but not least, this book right here, the Book of Jungle Comics, which is a kind of like a gallery of all the different covers from Jungle Comics from its inception back in 1940 all the way to 1954. So it has all the different covers of Jungle Comics up in here. So if you're trying to search for all the Jungle Comics and you're trying to figure out which ones you have and don't have, this book is a great reference material here. Even though it's mostly in black and white, but it still is a great reference to have, where you can know what you may missing, who did what covers and everything. All that information is in here. So that was a great pickup here. And that is new comic book pickups for the week here. Hopefully that whet your guys' appetites here. And I do see, she said, ooh, okay. hopefully that whets you guys' appetites here, because I was waiting, hopefully was waiting for somebody else to pop up in here to be viewing here, because we talked about a couple of issues on the Thursday show for Comic Book Spectrum that they wanted here. So I just wanted to make certain that it's like, yeah, you want to owe me again here, but here's another Spider Woman #1, another Cat #1, and a Marvel Chillers #3, all dealing with the books that we talked about towards the tail end of Thursday's show here. We'll talk about that a little bit later here. But nevertheless, it's now time for updates and accountability and everything here. So what has been going on over this past week here, I was able to do 2 more pages for the 1 chapter in Legends of the Giantess Slayer here. So I'm almost finished with another chapter of one of the anthology stories here. And as stated, I've been doing sketch covers here, because everybody remembered that I showed you this one already. This was the one that I showed you guys already about, us asking for cosplay aspects of who you might want to see the main character Amazonian cosplay as. So this is the big barter that I did here. And this week, I know a handful of you probably already seen this, because if you're in kind of like the social circles that I have here, you've probably seen some of the ways that I was starting to test draw this type of stuff. And here we have Elisa Masters as Monica Rambeau as Photon. So we got that one done here. But yet there is one other one that even surprised me about how it came out here. And we got Tori in the house here, if it will bring her comment up. Yep, there's Tori. Yep. And everybody's saying hi to Tori as of right now. Yep, there it is. So the one that surprised me, sketch cover wise, that I did here. Yes, I did another Wonder Woman sketch cover here. I did more or less kind of like the Super Friends era Wonder Woman on this one. So that's the front cover there. And there's the back. So I still got a color in and everything and get it all nice and spiffy here. Will it be going to CGC for the grading aspect of Signature Series? Probably so. But yes, I've been trying to get my penciling skills back where I could finish issue #8 of Amazonia here. So everything will be back in order and everything to that magnitude. As far as primetime Saturday night, I haven't started the actual artwork for the first bout as of yet here. I got all the pages up to the first bout done. I just haven't figured out how the flow of the match and everything and how everything is going to work itself out here. But that's going to be something that I need to really get back to focusing on after coming home from the 9 to 5 and everything. And that's pretty much the update that we have for this week here. So I guess you guys are wondering, video responses to other YouTubers videos. Yes, I'm going to be doing some responses here, but I gotta have to do this disclaimer, because they're not going to be Joe rants, because you guys know how dangerous Joe rants are going to be. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to expand the discussions about some of these videos that came out that I watched that really caught my attention and everything. I'm going to expand the discussion here. Feel free to tag the owners of the video, because I'm going to actually show you which videos I'm actually going to talk about and everything to that magnitude here. And Tori said, was reviewing a comic I was sent to review and upload. Oh, cool. I will make certain that I will watch that here. Make certain I will watch that a little bit later here. So that's cool. That is very cool here. But as I was saying, I need to do my disclaimer here, because again, the disclaimer is pretty much going to be as simple. I am just responding to these 5 videos here. I am not going to rant about them. I have no ill will towards any one of the creators or content creators for these videos and everything. My goal is to expand the discussion of their videos and some of the topics that is contained within those videos, and hopefully get more and more people to start looking at the other side of the arguments from this point forward here. Not to say that what is in these videos is wrong, but there is room for discussing in depth the total topic that was being discussed here. So with that in mind, I don't want anybody to go over there and start bashing them. I don't want anybody to come over here and start bashing me here. The whole point of the exercise is to respond to those videos and to open up the dialogue a little bit more. And it looks like we got Don in the house. See, I'm glad that you were able to make it to this week, because we got some things to really discuss here. So let me go ahead and start the ball rolling here. And we're going to start the ball rolling with this one right here. The very first video that we're going to talk about here is that one right there. I believe it was earlier this week that Midhunter Comics did one that was the top 10 money pits in comic collecting. It's a good video. It's a good video here. But here's where I'm going to expand on the overall discussion of this, because he brought up a couple of points where I'm up here. It's like, yeah, you're right about this, but here's the other side of things that needed to be brought up before the top 10 was done here. Because my number one that he did not make, that he did not bring up as a money pit is the fact that if you plan to resell or go into the secondary market to sell, that's number one. Reason that's a money pit, because you need to understand that you're not going to make the money that you paid into the books that you have in most cases, unless you are a long time collector and bought the books on pennies at a dollar. 9 times out of 10, especially if you're a new collector, you're not going to make money by going out there to the secondary market and reselling your books. It is what it is. Now, I have watched all these, well, that's a whole nother reaction video, so I'm not going to go through that topic here, but some of the things that he made mention in this one was very good and to the point. And it also, kind of grind my gears, because he made mention about slabbing again. And I've been seeing a lot of videos talking about, don't slab your books. Don't slab your books. It's like, you guys are slabbing for the wrong reasons. You don't slab a book to raise a book's value. The book's value is in how you keep up with that book. It doesn't have to be slabbed to get that type of money here. You have to look at slabbing as an option of protection, as opposed to increasing the value of the book. That's the key thing that always drives me up the wall when people are up here talking about, don't slab a book, don't slab a book. It's like, look, people could slab books all they want, just like people could put their books in Mylars all they want, or they could buy whatever cheapo bag and board that they want and keep them that way. That's their prerogative. But you shouldn't have to feel that the only way to get value for your book is to slab. It's not always that way here. And then on top of that, everybody look at, well, what about the resale value? It's like, stop worrying about resale value. And it goes back to the history of slabbing. Slabbing, when it was introduced, and then we're going back to like the late 80s, early 90s. Slabbing, when it was first introduced, was not introduced to increase the value of your book. It was done for protection of your books and possibly helping you insure your books, because of the simple fact that it came with a certification. Now, I'm going to bring back that topic here a little bit later because we got some more videos that talk about that here. But that was the real purpose of slabbing. It was more for protection and evaluation of your books for insurance purposes to maintain your value. Because again, back in the day, your homeowner's insurance will cover, comic books and stuff like that, but they only give you the value of the book as it was appraised for. Back then, there wasn't too many people out there doing insurance level appraisals for this type of stuff here, and slapping the book because it came with a certification number guarantees that, kind of helps the insurance company guarantee that if you had a 9.8 near mint book, that they have to give you 9.8 near mint pricing for that book. Now we're going to fast forward some 50, 60 years later. Everybody's slamming their books mainly because of, oh, well, if it's a 9.8, I could, my book value goes from 6 times what it's worth to 100 times what it's worth, or 20 times what it's worth. That was never a good reason to do that. It was always about protection and solidifying the actual condition. Now, is it a money pit? In some cases, especially with a lot of modern books, it can become a very big money pit. Or titles that were unpopular, it could be a money pit here. But it's still your prerogative on how you want to protect your books, regardless, one way or the other here. So that's the thing here. Yep, there's my girls. There's my girls. Yes, preservation. That's the first and foremost reason to slab a book is to preserve it. Preservation. Anything else is just like, okay, you're taking risks. You're taking risks. You're taking, a big risk that you're going to be able to recoup any type of money here. Yep, I slab for me, no other reason. Exactly. You don't have to slab it for other people or slab it just to increase the value for resale. And that's the reason why I say the number one money pit is entering that secondary sales market. You're not going to get value of your book, period. You're not going to do it. You might, get close. You might sell 1 or 2 above value, but across the board, be willing to take that loss. And that's one of the things that a lot of resellers don't really tell you. It's like some of the stuff is like you get what you can and you keep moving on. And the books that are really the most popular ones out there, that's how you're going to make your money back, because you're going to make certain that you're going to either get book value or a little bit above. But for most stuff that is considered bulk, you're going to lose money. Hands down, you're going to lose money on it, period. And Don is saying, as a recent small seller, I have to come to the understanding that people will buy big seller books above market and less likely for the smalls. Yeah. And this is the type of discussion that should have been included in this top 10 money pits for collectors, because one of the things that came up recently, and I hate to say it, hate to say it this way, because she's kind of right. My fiance was, I've told her, like, I'm going to storage and this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, I'm going to sort my comics and this, that, and the other. It's just like, okay, fine, this, that, and the other. And I took a quick little video of all the comics that I had to sort. And she was like, that's a lot of books. That's a big task. And the next thing that came out of her mouth was, why don't you open up a comic book store? And the first thing that came out of my mouth after that is, it would be a business of loss unless I had something like collectible card game tournaments there. I had part-time video games, sales or video game sales, or have like an arcade that's there that adds on to the revenue, because the books themselves will be, most of it will be sold at a loss. It's like, it's not a lucrative venture in that aspect. Can it be done? Yes. So that's why I didn't be like, nah, that's not going to happen. It's more like, I'm not at a place where I could accept loss at this point. It's just, it is what it is. I love my Unky Joe slabby. Yep. I slap. It's like I slap because I don't want to have to worry about storage and condition as often. See, when you look at it from that standpoint, it makes common sense. You don't slab a brand new off the shelf book that came out this week, get your 9.8, and then expect to flip your what, $5, $5 or $6 for the book plus another $40 after you get it back. So $45 book to hope to get $100 to flip it for double, 2 to 4 weeks later. It doesn't always work. And then again, who's to say that that book value is going to be worth that much? One of the cool things that I loved about what he was saying in this video was the speculation. Don't fall for the speculation, because if you buy based upon speculation, it's going to hurt. And that's one of the things that Mint Hunter got exactly right in this video about speculation and all this other stuff. It can hurt you just as much. But he also talked about a lot about the slabbing. And I think once people get back to the understanding of what slabbing was originally was meant for, these things get cleared up a lot easier. Do you go slab or go raw? It's like, well, it depends on how you want to store them. If you want to store everything in Mylar, have at it. If you want to get some of the older stuff slab, for the certification number and everything, that's on you. No one could tell you which one is better or worse. You have to take it on faith, one way or the other, as far as what you decide is best for you. The end. That's the best way I could put it here. Now, the second video that I want to talk about here comes from Comic Book Investments here. And the title is very, very, very deceptive. So yeah, it's not the end of CGC or anything to that magnitude or anything to that logic. But he brought up a very interesting look at far as how comic book investors look at the market as of right now. And the problem that he's pointing out was CGC may be having issues since PSA is now pretty much giving more 10s and 9.9s out on their side, while CGC, we haven't seen many 9.9s and 10s coming out of their grading system here. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I see this type of stuff is, are you really complaining about the company, or are you complaining about the grading standard? Because that's the discussion that I really wish that he would take that step back and really have. Because if you're going to complain about why PSA is giving out more 10s and 9.9s, then I would have to question, what is the grading scale difference? And when I say what is the grading scale difference is this. For the longest time, there's been arguments about, is a CGC 9.8 the same as a CBCS 9.8? And now I have to question, is a CGC 9.8 is still equivalent to a 9.8 for PSA? Because if that's not the case here, then why are grading companies using the same exact grading scale? And this becomes really the bigger problem when it comes to that secondary market. If, and I'm going to pick on PGX before the longest, PGX for the longest, a 9.8 PGX, people have always knew was never a true 9.8 until maybe sometime recently. Now they have gotten better graders and all this other stuff. But if you got a PGX 9.8, you can submit that. You could guarantee that you can submit that into CGC. You're not going to get that 9.8. And it's really, kind of sad, because we have multiple great companies out there. And if you're going to bring up the argument that, well, CGC needs to, look at what PSA is doing and give out more 9.9s and 10s, then it's like, no, what you're really asking for is the grading standards to be changed here. And again, doing homework, it comes back to this book right here, explaining what each and every last category for grading a book comes to. And it comes back to the subjectivity of it. That what was in Overstreet has been standard across the board for decades. I can't say centuries because we haven't got to what the 2040s as of yet. We're getting close, but it's been that way for decades. And by questioning, should CGC change their grading standards to be a little bit more flexible, I think you're going to kind of cheapen the overall grading scale. And you don't really want to cheapen a grading scale just for the benefits of saying, oh, I have a Gem Mint comic book. When you truly think about it, the whole idea of a Gem Mint 10 is the idea, and like I said, it's an idea, it's theory of like walking over to those printing presses as soon as the book is assembled, stapled, and everything, grabbing it right then and there with no flaws, nothing. Grabbing it, slapping it right there. No one has touched it. It has not been circulated, and it's encapsulated right then and there. No touching. That's the idea of what a Gem Mint 10 is supposed to be. It's getting very close to a pedigree. It's supposed to be rare. You have to think about it in that aspect here. A true Gem Mint 10 is truly something that it is very rare, because it would mean that it had to be just about damn near uncirculated. And us collectors have to understand, from the time that it gets off of the printing press, sent over to the publishers, then sent to the distributor, then sent to your comic books, then sent to your comic book store, you have umpteen people already touching the book. You don't know what type of damage that book can have here. And yes, this grading scale is very subjective here. But the whole concept of Gem Mint is the fact that it is in a quality where it's like right off fresh of the printing press with no errors. It's supposed to be rare. Now, if PSA is, giving them out like it was candy, that would make me put a big old question mark there as far as why are they changing the grading scale here. Now, again, these investment people, they are more into company names and more into the reputation that they have already established here. And like I said before, PSA has made their name in card-based industry, which means like collecting cards, baseball cards, stuff to that magnitude. They made their name over there. They're brand new to comics. That does not necessarily mean that they know the true ins and out of comics. Yeah, they're going to hire some people that know their stuff. But at the same time, PSA is banking on that reputation that they have for collectible cards to carry them over. Now, if they're being lenient as far as what that 10 and that 9.9 is, I don't get it to the test. If it's truly if you truly got a 10 PSA book here, send it to a CGC, send it to a CBCS. If it gets a 10 there, that means that the standard is still even across the board, regardless of grading company. That grade changes to a lower grade, then you need to be worried. Now, again, I get what he's saying, hoping that CGC would ease up. But the thing about it is that it also changed the market for it being more investor friendly, because now they could get a bigger bang for their buck for that 10 and 99. Like I said, that 10 and 99 is pretty much grabbing it right off of that printing press. Nobody else touches it, uncirculated, right there, capsulated, boom. It is what it is. But is that really a problem? No. It's more wishful thinking. It's more wishful thinking, but I do question the fact that if asking for CGC to do exactly what PSA is doing, then you're truly asking for the grading scale to be changed across the board. So that is the hot take on that one here. Now, issue number 3 here, or the video number 3 that we're going to talk about, we already kind of covered already, so I'm not going to beat this one to death here. And I already talked about this one. And yes, it's from our friend over there at Mint Hunter Comics about our comics for kids. Comics originally started back in the day as a all ages entertainment source. So to answer the question, no, it is not really. They were never truly intended for kids and kids only. It was more along the lines as comic books kind of had its ups and downs, the roller coaster ride that we had here as far as entertainment sources here, especially when it comes to print media. Comics was an all ages thing. There was something for everybody, for all ages, whether you was 90 or 9 months, there was something for you out there on the newsstand where you could read and have fun with it. But as things progress, and one of the things that, like I said before, I credit him for bringing up the whole thing about seduction of the innocent here. This is where the turning point of the view of comics being from a all ages type entertainment medium to kids changed. And that's where the nature of the question have to be reflected on. Should there be more content for kids as opposed to our comics in general, the medium itself for kids? Comics as a medium is really for all ages. Stories were written for all ages. But what they was really talking about in the seduction of innocence, especially in the pre-code era, was that you having kids who were like 8, 9, 10, 11 read things like Crime Does Not Pay, which was highlighting, some of the more, if I could say, not so savory crime stories that could be had here. And it wasn't that it was gruesome or terrible or anything to that magnitude, but like the so-called psychiatrist that was, leading the charge with some of the innocence here, you could see that it could have some influence one way or the other, whether for the good or the positive, based upon the nature of how it was highlighting these criminals and kind of glorifying, how what they did was so gruesome that it could be imitatable. I get that. But you also have to understand that it was not just, little 6-year-old Timmy reading, Crime Does Not Pay. You had, the 40-year-old Mr. Johnson down the block that was also reading Crime Does Not Pay. So the way that they kind of curve who was buying these comics came with the hearings dealing with the seduction of the innocents, and then we had the self-inflicted comics code coming in after to kind of be like, okay, fine, we have to now have these guidelines for telling stories. And even within these guidelines, telling stories and everything to that magnitude, to kind of filter for kids, these companies never stop truly writing for those who was of age. They just had to dumb down a lot of the activities and the visuals for that. And this is only something that happens mostly in the United States in the first place. This, and for those who are listening to this, yes, this is primarily a United States thing, because we go over there for manga. There's all the manga and everything to that magnitude. We go over to Europe. There's all types of comics for all ages. They don't consider comics solely for kids. It is an art form. It is appreciated as an art form for all to behold here. It's only in the United States where we got kind of skittish on this aspect, or I shouldn't say skittish, prudish on this aspect of the art itself of storytelling. It's like we're the ones that are saying, oh, we got to put the kibosh on these types of stories because it could lead kids astray. And it's like, well, if this is an all ages type thing, maybe the parents need to be a little bit more involved, and you read together as a family and talk about why these things are bad and all this other stuff. That's where this whole conversation should have been steered towards, but it really wasn't. It wasn't steered back to the direction that we're talking about right now until after he got past the seduction of the innocence Congress hearings, and what he said after that was pretty much spot on. But before, no, comics was never really geared towards kids. And yes, we saw all these different pictures from like the 1940s and 1950s of kids in the comic book stands, and the kids reading, comics at the comic book stands, newsstands, and comic book stands, and all this other stuff. We've seen those pictures here. But that was also during a time where comic books was in newsprints, and it was selling millions by like clockwork. We don't even have those distribution numbers today as a result of it. Why? Because we went through the invention of the radio, the television, streaming. We got all these other means of entertainment here, as opposed to back in the day, the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, where comics was a sole mean for entertainment, not just for kids, but for everyone. If you're going to talk about this topic, you got to talk about it from the origin and from the root of it. And from the root, you have to understand that when we get into this topic of is comics for kids, you have to understand that back in its most popular heyday, which would have been like just before the Golden Age and the Golden Age, comics was an all ages thing. It was not geared towards primarily kids. Once you understand that, and then get into the seduction of the innocent, because it was the kids who were still asking their parents for that nickel, for that dime, for 15 cents to pick up that next issue of Buck Rogers, or that next issue of Tarzan, or that next issue of Crime Does Not Pay, or the next issue of True Crime Comics, or next issue of Blondie, or whatever was popular, Plastic Man, Captain Marvel. It was an all ages thing. But when kids were still allowed to go to these newsstands and buy these books without parental guidance, that's what was the real question that's really going on. How much of an influence did Captain Marvel, aka Billy Batson, had over the kids? How much influence did a book like Crime Does Not Pay have over kids? That was the real cause of the hearings, the Congress hearings, that was eventually, branded by the one psychologist as the seduction of the innocent, or the study of seduction of the innocent came about, because they were wondering about what was going on in the psyches for these larger than life stories that kids were reading. Even though you had adults that were diehard fans of this type of stuff, they would worry about more about what effect that it had on kids during that time. So if you're going to ask, is comics for kids? You have to look at it from the standpoint, it's like, where did the concept of comics are for kids coming from? So now going into our fourth video. And like I said, I keeping the information on the screen here, just that way you could look at the actual video and know where I'm talking about here. Now, Brian's Comics, another good resource for comic information and everything to that magnitude. He did a recent video talking about JSA regular authentication, the old school signature series. And he was looking at the difference in price difference as far as value of the book if you went with the JSA grading as opposed to signature series. Now, for those who may not know the difference here, it's like both of these are services from CGC, but you have to understand the history of it first. The history of CGC when it comes to signed comics is that if they did not witness it, you would normally get a green label saying name is on the cover, and they would go ahead and grade the book. And there was no certification that says that XYZ creator signed this book. There was no way for them to verify it. They had to personally witness this. They had to have somebody in their camp personally witness the signature to have that gold label to say signature series. Now, since JSA came into the picture, and then JSA has a major stake in CGC now, JSA now does the signature authority here, and he was looking at those that he sent in for JSA to actually authenticate that the signature was real versus the signature series, and he was looking at sales data between the two, and lo and behold, what he's surprised is like they're roughly about the same here. But what I also find interesting is it truly worth the money to get something JSA certified? And the answer that I come up with here, and this is just from my own experience and my own experience alone here, and this is why I want to open up the door for this type of discussion for this video here. I do have signed books here. I do have one that has a green label. Well, I actually got several that got green labels because that they did not witness signature. But my question becomes this, because I had it done so long ago, is it really worth paying the extra grading fee to get that yellow label or not? And a lot of this, like I said, a lot of this comes back down to the first video here, the money pit. Is it really worth it in the long run to pay the extra money just to have that extra gold label? To have that extra gold label to say JSA certified that, yes, Chris Claremont signed this book, or David Anthony Kraft actually signed this book. Is it really truly worth it in the long run? In my case, it's like I have at least three signed by well, actually 4 signed by Claremont that I need to get done. One will happen to be raw, so I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the 3 slabs that I have that signed by Claremont that got the green label, and one by David Anthony Kraft that got the green label. Is it really worth almost paying them another $100 just to have the gold label with the JSA certification label on it? In most cases, it's not. But when you look at it from the point of resale value, it may be worth it depending on the nature of the book. If the book is worth money and you know that you're sending in like a 9.8 and you're going and you want to go ahead and send the 9.8 in, and you're going to come back at 9.8 once they verify that the signature is real, it may be worth it if you could guarantee that you could sell it for more than what the book is worth. But for the average collector, no. And again, I put this out there more so for your own personal, view on it. I'm not saying that don't do it, but what I'm saying here is put your own spin and value to it here. If you really like Chris Claremont books and you love the fact that he signed those books and you want it in that JSA label, go for it. But for the average person, it was like, you have to think about it. You're paying close to somewhere between $40 to $60 to get it graded in the first place here. So you already did that once. Now you're paying an extra $30-something, $30 to $35 on top of that now for the certification. So after your initial 60, let's say 60, to cover the shipping back. After your initial 60, now you're going to put another $100 into it just because you need the signature authenticated. You got to ask yourself if that investment is really worthwhile in the long run. And then the second thing you have to ask is this going to be a long-term book that you're going to keep, for several years? And when I say several years, I talk about decades. So it's like if you're going to keep it for like 20 years, 30 years, it may be worth it in the long run to eventually get it, certified. Because by the time you might be ready to sell it, especially if the creator has passed away, yeah, that signature can be worth, significant amount of money. You never know. But it was just interesting about how he did the breakdown between the two just to get to the point where they both pretty much even out. They pretty much, the books were selling for just about the same amount of money. They're having the JSA certified authentication did not add really much value to the book than having them to witness up under regular signature series. It was pretty much the exact same thing here. So it was kind of like a good experiment to watch on that hand. So that brings us to our last video. And this one is coming to us from our good buddy over there at Swaggle House. And this one really almost got my goat. And the reason I say it almost got my goat here is not because of what was being looked at. It was more along the lines of, I'm wondering if all these investment people are hedging their bets on having bigger books done by PSA, hoping that it will fetch CGC money at places such as Heritage Comics, because that's what this video was pretty much about here. They were looking at a actual auction. Now, mind you, when I talk about a big boy book, this was a big boy book. And when we talk about big boy books, some people think it's like, oh, $5,000 is a big boy book. No, we're talking about 5 digits or more for these type of books over there at Heritage. So I forgot what book he was looking at here. I can't say if it was the More Fun comics that he had pictured there. I can't remember off the top of my head which one, but it was a book that was of a significant high grade book, sold via Heritage Auctions up under PSA, and it got what would be close to 2/3 of what a CGC book of the same grade would have gotten previously up under Heritage Auctions here. And this is why he kind of framed it as like our collectors actually buying the label and not the book. And he was saying that maybe PSA books are being soft on the secondary market because of what happened with this one auction at Heritage. And I'm at first, like I say, it got my goat because the first thing I'm going to go is like, oh, poppycock. PSA hasn't had their, if I could say, haven't had their growing pains, and people haven't truly tested them. And when I say people haven't truly tested them, when I'm talking about really as far as the secondary market, as far as is there 9.8 trillion 9.8? Because if you're going to go based upon the label, the fact that PSA did it, you're really going based upon their reputation, and they really haven't established a reputation for comic books as of yet. CBCS has, CGC has, PGX has, EGS not so much, not so much. But now we got PSA. PSA, I think, just started this year, or at least started grading comics this year. So they got growing pains to go through. It's too early to say that their books are going to be soft on the secondary market. It's way too early. Way too early. I mean, it's a good catch for a book that we know would usually, it's like when he said soft, and we're talking about, like I said, we're talking about 5 digits here. It fetched a little bit under 50 grand, and the book usually normally banks about 90. And that's what was bothering him, was the fact that it's like, here's a book that we normally know that would normally fetch $90,000 at auction, and it barely got to 50. And the first couple of things that I look at is like, well, one, it's also PSA. It's a PSA graded book. PSA is new to the party here, but also look at the economy. Are we having an economy where people literally have $90,000 at will to spend on a big boy book like that? Not so much. So, maybe there is market correction that's actually happening. It's not really because of the PSA graded book itself. It could be market correction. You don't know. It's too early, way too early to say it. Now, is it cause for alarm? Not so much, but it's one of those things to make you go like, And that's why I applaud Swaggle for it, is because it made him go, this is interesting. This is worthwhile to look into a little bit more deeply. But I really wish that he would have did a couple more big boy books. It's like if he would have done not just the 1 or 2, but did like 20 or 40 to get a bigger sample size of books that fetches more than 5 digits, and saw that all of them were like 2/3 of what the normal value is, then he's like, yeah, you might have a point. But just the 1 or 2, it's like, you don't know. It's like the market could be correcting for that book. We just don't know. That's too small of a sample. And then PSA has not been in the comic book realm, not even a year as of yet, to really say that, oh, it is, people are just not trusting the PSA label or just buying a PSA label. You don't know. You honestly don't know as of yet. Give it time. Give it more time. I think people are getting impatient, to be quite honest, especially investors. Investors get very impatient because they understand time is money. And the longer you wait, you snooze, you lose. So I can understand their impatience, their impatient aspect of these types of things. But that's pretty much where everything lies at, where things are going, and how people are truly looking at these types of things here. And like I said before, this is another good video to look at here, because he tries to bring out a lot more to the table on this, but I just believe the sample size is just way too small to really say that there might be something, something that should be looked at here. And those are the 5 that I'm going to do today here. And I'm going to open up the floor to you guys here, because if there's nothing else to talk about here, I probably let you guys go an hour early, because I ran out of things to talk about. Like I said, I wasn't going to rant. I could rant, but I'm not going to rant about those 5 because I just feel that people need to talk more about what is being discussed in content now. We can't be negative. We have to look at both the other side and still be positive. And that's where people are not really, if I could say, being inviting. Whether you're new to comics or whether you're an old head like me, we all got questions. We all look at things a little bit different. We all have where we go, where the different ways that we want to go with our own personal collections here. So, as much as I up here, may not be always on the side of those who's like, I'm do this to invest. I got your back from time to time because I do understand where you're coming from. As those who are selling, I got your back too. Those who are creators like myself, I definitely got your back. And if you're just an average everyday collector, I got your back too. But that's just the way I look at it. It's like a lot of these, a lot of this content is great content, but I don't think they cover enough to look at the bigger picture, the fuller picture of all this other stuff, or they manipulate the question enough where they don't have to go in depth or to the root of the overall problem. And that's where a lot of the stuff falls apart here. I know I haven't had the comments up. Oh, there has not been any new comments here. And there's my non-endorsement again. Why? Coca-Cola has technically has left the United States and gone overseas due to tariffs and everything, but I still drink my cherry Coke like always. So, what's on your guys' minds as of right now? Because, like I said, this is my video response to those 5 videos here. I'm thinking about doing some more because as I watch different videos, especially for those who are dealing with comic book collecting, comic book creating, or sales, I learn a lot, but also see where the conversation is just not open up enough to truly talk about it in a way that they need to be talked about here. Oh, y'all just y'all listening? Yeah, I get it. I get it, but a lot. It just seems to me so it's like I appreciate these content creators. Yeah, I really do. I really do. Mainly because it's not always easy to get everybody in, one big room and talk about this type of stuff. And it's easier, if you do have like someone who did great video, but they might miss one type of aspect to the topic. It's easier for those who's like, hey, have you thought about this? Or let's open up the discussion this way to, like a person like me to do it as a live stream too. It's like, hey, I want to talk about this hour, but go back and watch this other person's video because it's really, 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 really good. It's really good. But they didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about this aspect of it. And, they got all this stuff, good content after it. But over here is where we need to start really looking at this question. Or maybe it's too small, a sample where you're only comparing like 2 books that happened, or 1 book that happened at Heritage. Too small of a sample, and maybe there is, comic correction and all this, marketing and all this other stuff that could play a factor. That the fact that it was a PSA graded book doesn't matter. It didn't matter. It could have been a CGC book. It didn't matter. Or just like what I said about comic book investment, it's like, yeah, if you're going to worry about the 9, 9, and 10, it's like maybe you need to really be on the bandwagon about changing the grading scale to say what is a truly acceptable 10, what is a truly acceptable 9, 9, and what's a truly acceptable 9, 8. That's a fair conversation to have. Let's be logical. Fair conversation. It's like, and during that whole time, I'm not going to say that you're wrong, I'm not going to say that you're wrong because you brought up a good question. Like I said, my red flag, what you brought up here, would have been why is PSA having a lot more 99s than 10s, especially being the new guy on the block. What are you doing that is different grading wise that's causing you to have more 99s and 10s? Does it meet the same standard as all the others? That's the question. And people need to know that when you ask that question, it opens up the door. It makes it a lot more palatable to dissect what is being said and have a good conversation about it without being angry, without having to be like, you're right, you're wrong. It's like, no, he has the right to state what he stated, and he has a valid argument. If PSA are seeing books at more than 9s and 10s, then what are they truly seeing on their side that is not being caught by CBCS, CGC, EGS, PGX, and all the other grade companies? That's a fair question to ask. But also, a better question is, how come all the grading companies are not using the same scale? They all are derived from the same source. Eventually, everything grading wise come back from Overstreet and what they consider each one of the grading categories here. What is mint? What is near mint? What is near mint minus? What is flying plus? It states all that stuff out many decades ago. So if you're really overly concerned as far as like the lack of 10s and 9s, you might think about, hey, maybe the grading scale want to be changed across the board here. And let's see. Oh, we got, okay, let me get what Tori was saying here. We want to start from the very beginning. The biggest problem I have with the types of videos is that one guy point of view talking like it's the only thought. Yeah. And it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to present it that way, but you also have to be open to discussion, open to honest debate, and understand that people are not going to say you're wrong, but have you thought about this? And a lot of times I feel that way. I feel like, even the topics that I bring here, it's like, I appreciate when people say, hey, have you thought about this? I'll be like, no, I didn't think about that. Let's look at it that way. Or yes, I have, and this is the reason why I still feel this way. And I see your point over here, because when you look at this, and this, it doesn't feel that way here. Yeah, for instance, Claremont signs a lot. Exactly. So Dak, yeah, David Anthony Crabb did not sign much, therefore all those factors for signatures. Yeah. And the standards need to be universal for comics, like it is with cards. Exactly. And that's what all these things are fair game to talk about. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring at least these 5 videos to the forefront, to open up more dialogue. Because why? They're great topics to talk about. They're very great topics to talk about. But the problem here is it's hard to keep it compact to snippets of anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes to watch. In some cases, some of these topics can run on several hours, and you can have a full-on blown debate about these type of things until you're blue in the face. But for the average person who are watching over the interweb, smaller portions are better. And it's going to take a team of people to be like, oh, I watched this video and this is how I feel about it. This is how I react to it. And I'm opening up the door for, for possibly, it's like, hey, you come back and rebut what I'm saying. And it keeps that dialogue going as long as it's still, still friendly and not going to like, oh, you're a jerk for this, doing this, that, and the other. It's like, nah, We don't need the negativity. It's just more along the lines like open up the door for a good conversation about it, because nobody's saying that they're absolutely right. This is just pretty much what we have experienced. My experiences as a collector, as a creator, is going to be completely different than let's say Bry from Brian Gordon from Bry's Comics. My experience from his, because he's a seller, he's a secondary market seller. He's also a collector. So his experience is going to be from a whole different angle. Same thing for Mint Hunter Comics. He went full time in the secondary market here. He has done some artwork in the past and everything, but he has also been a lifelong collector as well. His experience is going to be different. And definitely comic book investment is going to have a different take on it, because he grew up. If I remember what he said on his videos, he grew up having family that owned comic book stores and was doing comic book investment from the very onset here. So he knows the ins and outs of comic book investment like the back of his hands. He also has a vast collection. I could definitely say that his experiences are going to be way different than mine. But I'm also willing to say, it's like, you know what, guy, you might have something. You might have something there that I probably would have never thought about, because I have never personally experienced that. But then again, you have not experienced what I have experienced either. Let's share these experiences and come to like some type of, centralized agreement, centralized compromise to be like, yeah, this is, maybe things should be this way, or maybe things should be, maybe, more collectors should be in the middle of this argument or this discussion. It is what it is here. And just having good, honest, old school debates where nobody's feelings get hurt. Nobody nobody's feeling the way that they're feeling. Nobody gets any type of hurt feelings in the bigger scheme of things here. And I'm wondering if there's going to be any more comments here, because it seems like the chatter has slowed down here. But like I said, this show is pretty much for you guys here. And I think that just popped back up. Let me go ahead and get that back off the screen here. But this show, Front of Desk, is really more for you guys. You have unfettered access to me here. We could talk about all the different stuff going on, comic book related wise, and everything to that magnitude here. And I think this, so far, tonight's experiment is going to be a rousing success here, because I see people up here, I see, people really talking and listening and everything to that magnitude here. But like I said, I don't know. And I do want to say, like in my disclaimer, you saw, I did not bash anybody, did not talk bad about anybody. And I don't want none of you to do that either. What they said on their video has just the same amount of rights to be said, just like I said things here as a response. So everybody has to say, like I always tell people, there's always room at the table when it comes to comic book collecting here. The problem only comes in where people start wanting to exclude people. And that's where the problem comes in at here. And Tori said, yeah, I need to do more of these here. I agree. I do agree, because that way people could get to see the other side. Because it's like everything is not always a one-sided topic. There's always two sides to every topic here. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's just meh. But at least these are the five that I paid more attention to over the last couple of weeks, that I was like, you know what, let's talk about these things, let's give a video response to. And I'm glad that you guys like it here. But what's on you guys' minds here before I wrap up everything for tonight here? Because if we ran over an hour. I know we're into stupid o'clock time here, so I know the people who normally watch stupid o'clock has already moved over, but we still got a pretty big audience here for this one tonight. So what else is guys on your minds that's been bothering out the industry, or topics that you guys watch and it was up here? It's like, hey, maybe we should think about this here. So let's talk about some of those things here. What have you guys seen recently that kind of sticks out to you? See, give it a couple of moments here. If we don't get anything, we probably call it a night here. So I'm going to give it maybe like a good another 5 minutes or so. But after the show tonight, I'm probably going to end up finishing up the last 2 pages of the story for the anthology chapter that I was working on here. I may do another sketch. I don't know. It really depends on how I feel here. But what I've been kind of afraid to do here is, like I said, I still haven't took off the stuff back there off of the table back here before I could start drawing. Before I could start drawing Amazonia 8, but I really need to get that Amazonia 8 done. I can't pussyfoot around more. I got that drawing bugging in here, and that came from the sketch covers and everything. So if you see me drawing sketch covers, you kind of feel that it's like, yeah, the next issue of a actual book that I put on Bristol board is coming. So it looks like we got no more comments here. So that means that my people on the East Coast, guess what? You guys going to have a good portion of your Saturday back, because 45 to 44 minutes of you're about to get that back here to enjoy the rest of your Saturday, just like everybody else on the rest of the United States coast here. And if you're overseas, I hope that you enjoy watching this in the future, because I think you're already in Sunday. So greetings from the other side of the planet here. And as I always say, live life, grow, and be well. And I'll catch you guys next week here. So until then, live life, grow, and be well. And we are out of here. Bye.